Good morning, friends. Today we are going to learn the next part of our syllabus, that is unit number first, History of Indian Cinema. The example of about Golden Age. We learn about the Hindi feature film Pyasa and Mother India, which creates and presented the social reality uh, which is related to the contemporary society. Now we are going to learn about the classic Hindi cinema from the period of 1970s to 1980s. By 1970s, Hindi cinema was thematically stagnant and dominated by musical romance films. That is, romance films or romance movies are romantic love stories recorded in visual media but for broadcast in theaters and on television that focus on passion, emotion, and the affectionate romantic involvement of the main characters and the journey that their love takes them through dating, courtship, or marriage. Romance films make the romantic love story or the search for strong and pure love and romance and the main plot focus. Occasionally, romance lovers face obstacles such as finances, physical illness, various forms of discrimination, psychological restraints, or family that threaten to break their union of love. As in all quite strong, deep, and close romantic relationships, tensions of day to day life, temptations of infidelity, and differences in compatibility enter into the plots of romantic films. So, romantic films often explore the essential themes of love at first sight, young with older love, unrequited romantic love, obsessive love, sentimental love, spiritual love, forbidden love, platonic love, sexual and passionate love, satirical, sacrificial love, explosive and destructive love, and tragic love. Romantic films serve as great escape and fantasies for viewers, especially if the two people finally overcome the difficulties, declare their love, and experience life happily ever after, implied by a union and final kiss. In romantic television series, the development of such romantic relationships may play out over many episodes, or different characters may become intertwined in different romantic arts. So, here we can understand there are many types of romance films, that is historical romance, romantic drama, romantic comedy, romantic action, romantic thriller, gothic romance, romantic fantasy, paranormal romance, musical romance. So those are the types of the romance films, and we can understand those historical romance, again the romantic drama, one of the example or one of the uh, type, that is chick flick drama or the cinema, that is called term often associated with romance films, as many are targeted to a female audience. Although many romance films may be targeted at women, this is not defining characteristic of a romance film, and a chick flick does not necessarily have romance as a central theme, revolve around the romantic involvement of characters, or even contain a romantic relationship. As such, the terms cannot be used interchangeably. Films of this genre include Gilda, The Red Shoes, Sense and Sensibility, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Dirty Dancing, The Notebook, Dear John, A Walk to Remember, 50 Shades of Grey, and Romeo and Juliet. So, those are the examples of the chick flick films, and it comes under the romance films. Next is about the example of from the classic Hindi cinema, that is Bombay Underworld film. which is the most sensational films that is focused on the Mumbai Underworld films. If we see, uh, it is called as organized crime in India. Organized crime in India is a reference to organized crime elements originating in India and active in many parts of the world. The purpose of organized crime in India, as elsewhere in the world, is monetary gain. Its virulent form in modern times is due to several socio-economic and political factors and advances in science and technology. There is no firm data to indicate the number of organized criminal gangs operating the country, their membership, the modus operandi, and the areas of their operations. Their structure and leadership patterns may not strictly fall in the classical Italian mafia. The Mumbai Underworld, formerly known as the Bombay Underworld, refers to the organized crime network in the city of Mumbai in the state of Maharashtra in India. Mumbai is the largest city of India and its financial capital. Over a period of time, the Mumbai underworld has been dominated by several different groups and mobsters. So, there are Mumbai underworld focused from the period of 1940s, and it focused on the Daketi, Andhra Pradesh factionalism, Goa mafia, Punjab mafia activities, popular culture, Daketi films. If we take example of the Daketi films, we come to understand how it is a term used for banditry in the Indian subcontinent. The spelling is an anglicized version of the Hindustani word Daku. Daket is a colloquial Indian English word with this meaning. It appears in the glossary of colloquial Anglo Indian words and phrases. So, banditry is a criminal activity involving robbery by groups of armed bandits. The East India Company established the Thuggi and Daketi Department in 1830, and the Thugge and Daketi Suppression Act 1836 to 1848 were enacted in British India under East India Company rules area with ravines or forests such as Chambal and Chittapalli. Chilapatta forest were once known for decades. So here are other examples, that is Andhra Pradesh factionalism, Goa mafia, Punjab mafia activities and popular culture. So in the Indian cinema of India, particularly Bollywood, crime films and gangster films inspired by organized crime in India have been produced since 1940. Indian cinema has several genres of such crime films, though examples of decade films, that is Aurat, Mother India, Ganga Jamuna, Sholay, and Bandit Queen. If we see about example of from the period of the classical age, that is the example of Mumbai Underworld films, Decade films, the example of uh, Decade films, that is Zanjeer, Diwar, Dawn, Salam Bombay, Parinda, and Company, Badshah, Rais, those films till today about the films of Daketi. And if we see the film Mafia Raj films, that is gangs of Wasepur and Arman. So these are the examples of the films of called as a Bombay Underworld films. And next example is about the masala films. It is about the includes the particularly number of genres, that is action film genre in which the protagonist is thrust into a series of events that typically involves violence and physical feats. Next example, comedy is a category of film which emphasizes humor, These films are designed to make the audience laugh through amusement. Films in this style traditionally have a happy ending, one of the oldest genre in film and derived from the classical comedy in theater. Next example is about romance, which are romantic love stories recorded in visual media for broadcast in theaters and on television that focus on passion, emotion, and the affectionate romantic involvement of the main characters and the journey that their love takes them through dating. Next example is about drama, is a category of narrative fiction intended to be more serious than humorous in tone. Drama of this kind is usually qualified with additional terms that is specify its particular supergenre, macro genre, and the macro micro genre. So here we can understand the example of Gone with the Wind for the drama. Melodrama. It is about dramatic work in which the plot, typically sensationalized and for the strong emotional appeal, takes precedent, precedence over detailed characterization. Melodramas typically concentrate on dialogue that is often bombastic or excessively sentimental. So, the next example is about musical. Is a film genre in which songs by the characters are interwoven into the narrative, sometimes accompanied by singing and dancing. The songs usually advance the plot or develop the film's characters, but in some cases they serve merely as breaks in the storyline. So here we can understand that how it is parts of the masala films. And the next example is about the Daketi film, which we learn about that Daketi film is used for bandit in the Indian subcontinent. The spelling is the anglicized version of the Hindi word Daku. So in this way we can understand there are many Daket films in Indian cinema. If we see the decade films, various indie films, the examples of Mother India, again this Desh Jis Desh Mein Ganga Behti Hai, and again Moni Bhattacharya's uh, film Mujhe Jeene Do, released in 1963. So here we can understand how there are films based on the Daketi and the concept of Daku. Next example we can say about the parallel film Sholay, which is about the particularly the underworld and the mm, written by action adventure film written by Salim Javed, directed by Ramesh Sippy, and produced by his father G.P. Sippy. The film is about two criminals, Viru and Jay. Viru's role is played by Dharmendra and Jay role played by Amitabh Bachchan to capture the ruthless Daket Gabbar Singh. All of us know the story of Sholay and how it is. The film, we can see that the film is combining the conventions of Indian Daket films, and it shows us the film is about true criminals to capture Anjay, Viru Anjay, hired by a retired police to capture the ruthless Daket Gabbar Singh, which is role played by Amjad Khan. Hema Malini and Jaya Bhaduri also star as Viru and Jay's love interest, Basanti and Radha, respectively. Sholay is considered a classic and one of the best Indian films. It was ranked first in the British Film Institute's 2002 poll of top 10 Indian films of all time. In 2005, the judge of the 50th Filmfare Awards named it the best film of 50 years. So here we can understand the film is about Daketi, and it shows the life of the two criminals and the world of Daketi at that time. So here we can understand from this film the classic age of Hindi cinema. Next example is about the art film, which is film is typically an independent film aimed at a niche market rather than a mass market audience. It is intended to be a serious artistic work, often experimental and not designed for mass appeal, made primarily for aesthetic reasons rather than commercial profile. So, here we can understand those art films are commercial profile, commercial profit. It is not made for commercial profit but for aesthetic reasons, and contains unconventional or highly symbolic content. So when we learn about the art films, there are there is also history from 1910 and films. We can see there is a number of films which is called as a art films, and which is created in Hollywood and as well as after that in Bollywood also. So this is the examples of the classical Indian film period of 1970s to 1980s. Here we can understand about the romance films, Daketi films, and the masala films, action films, and we can take examples of the movie Salam Bombay also. If we see classical Hindi cinema by 1970s, Hindi cinema was thematically stagnant and dominated by musical romance films. The arrival of screenwriting duo Salim Javed, Salim Khan, and Javed Akhtar with was a paradigm shift, revitalizing the industry. They began the genre of gritty, violent Bombay underworld crime films early in the decade with films such as Zanjeer and Diwar. Salim Javed reinterpreted the rural themes of Mehboob Khan's Mother India and Dilip Kumar's Ganga Jamuna in a contemporary urban context, reflecting the socio-economic and socio-political climate of 1970s India and channeling mass discontent, disillusionment, and unprecedented growth of slums with anti establishment themes and those involving urban poverty, corruption, and crime. So, in Salam Bombay movies of 1980s, we can understand how it is a creation of the film about the society, that is the growing growth of slum areas in the cities. So, here we can understand the anguished urban poor is shown in that movies. By the mid 70s, romantic confessions had given way to gritty, violent crime films and action films about gangsters, the Bombay underworld, and the bandits, that is, Ducats. Salim Javed's writing and Amitabh Bachchan's acting popularized the trend with films such as Zanjeer and particularly Diwar, a crime film inspired by Ganga Jamuna, which pitted a policeman against his brother and a gang leader based on real life smuggler Haji Mastan. According to Danny Boyle, Diwar was absolutely key to Indian cinema. In addition to Bachchan, several other actors followed by riding the crest of the train, which latest into the early 1990s. Actors from the era include Hema Malini, Jaya Bachchan, Rakhi, Shabana Azmi, Zeenat Aman, Parvin Bobby, Rekha, Dimple Kapadia, Smita Patil, Jaya Prabha, and Padmini Kolhapure. So, the name Bollywood was coined during the 1970s when the conventions of commercial Hindi films were defined. Key to this was the masala film, as we take an example of the masala films, which combines a number of genres action, comedy, romance, drama. melodrama, and musical. The masala film was pioneered early in the decade by filmmaker Nasir Hussain and the Salim Javed screenwriting duo, pioneering the Bollywood blockbuster format. Yado Ki Barat is directed by Hussain and written by Salim Javed, has been identified as the first masala film and the first quite essentially Bollywood film. Salim Javed wrote more successful masala films during the 1970s and 1980s. Masala films made Amitabh Bachchan the biggest star of the period. A landmark of the genre was Amar Akbar Anthony, directed by Manmohan Desai and written by Kader Khan, and Desai continued successfully exploiting the genre. Both genres, masala and violent crime films, are represented by the blockbuster Sholay, written by Salim Javed and starring Amitabh Bachchan. It combined the Daketi film conventions of Mother India and Ganga Jamuna with spaghetti westerns, spawning the Dakat western, also known as the curry western, which was popular during the 1970s. Some Hindi filmmakers such as Sham Benegal, Mani Kaul, Kumar Shahani, Ketan Mehta, Nihalani, and Vijaya Mehta continued to produce realist parallel cinema throughout the 1970s. Although the art film bent on the Film Finance Corporation was criticized during a 1976 Committee on Public Undertakings investigation, which accused the corporation of not doing enough to encourage commercial cinema. The decades saw the rise of commercial cinema with films such as Sholay, which consolidated Amitabh Bachchan's position as a star. The devotional classic Jai Santoshima was also released that year. So, by 1983, the Bombay film industry was generating an estimated annual revenue of rupees 700 crore, equivalent to $1.8 billion when adjusted for inflation. By 1986, India's annual film output had increased from 741 films produced annually to 833 films annually, making India the world's largest film producer. The most internationally acclaimed Hindi film of the 1980s was Meera Nayar's Salam Bombay, which won the Camera d'Or as the 1988 Cannes Film Festival and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film. Which, if we can take example of Salam Bombay, which, which is the first feature film directed by Nair. The film depicts the daily lives of children living in slums in Bombay, not Mumbai, India's largest city, as well as crime in India. It stars Shafiq Sayyed, Raghuveer Yadav, Anita Kanwar, Nana Patekar, Hansa Vittal, and Chanda Sharma. Nair's inspiration for the film came from the spirit of Bombay's street children and how they lived. Production began in early 1988 and the film was co-financed by the National Film Development Corporation of India. After being released worldwide on 6th October 1988, the film grossed an estimated $7.4 million at the overseas box office against a production budget of 450,000 dollars, nominated for the Academy Award for Best International Feature Film. So, it is about the film of the slum area and it creates the social reality in the city of Mumbai. So, here we can understand it is the classic Indian cinema period classic Indian cinema period of 1970s and 1970s to 1980s. Here we can understand this period through the movies like Zanjeer, Diwar, again the action films, and about the film like Sholay and the film like Salam Bombay. Here we can understand those films, and it is called as a classic Hindi cinema period of 1970s to 1980s. So in the next lecture we will learn about the particular part, next part of it.